Hi everyone, welcome to this talk I'm doing today on Change, Grow and Transform program, the 30-day program. I've got my YouTube page that helps you change, grow and transition into a life that you'll love, increasing your well-being and general life satisfaction and happiness. So the topic today actually that I'm going to explore is midlife. So midlife reimagined with growth, purpose and possibility. So I'll cover how to move through this transition, what to do next, questions to ask yourself, and transforming midlife crises if you're going through that. So first of all, like always, I like to share a bit of the data and what it's saying in particular in the UK about midlife, and some of my own personal experiences because I am definitely over 50. So bear with me for a moment while I just grab hold of the data that we've got out there. So recent research has shed a light on the challenges faced by people in midlife in the UK, as well as strategies to navigate this transitional period. So a study found that British adults aged 50 and above experience their highest levels of mental ill health, in particular during COVID-19 pandemic, surpassing well-known peak in midlife. This unexpected second midlife of mental health crises may accelerate or exacerbate the onset of chronic mental health issues, disproportionately affecting women. So, of course, during the pandemic, we saw a massive increase in the number of people whose mental health, became an area of concern for families and friends. But for this talk today, we're looking in particular at midlife and what's happened since COVID. What have we learned? What's some of the research saying? So just a sort of light deep dive today. Recent research has shed the light on challenges that is facing people in midlife in the UK, and the number of people in midlife who retired after the COVID pandemic was people aged 50 to 65 who left work. 39% left work to retire, and it was more pronounced in the age groups, 48% of those 60 to 65, so not that far off the usual retirement age in the UK. 33% of those 35 to 59. So that's, nearly a quarter of your workforce. And 9% of those were 50 to 54 years old. But the study found 25% of adults who left work for retirement around that time was slightly lower than the previous wave of the survey, which was 28%. Although, interestingly, what they found was a higher proportion of adults aged 50 to 59 years said they would consider returning to work in the second wave of the survey, which was 72%. So clearly something was going on at the time where people started to realise maybe, that they could have better work-life balance. They realised the amount of stress and the energy that's put into their working lives and how that can make it really difficult to enjoy hobbies outside of that, especially if you're working the 40-hour week, 5 days a week. So since COVID, several trends and research findings in the UK have highlighted the need for employers to adopt new ways of working and implement programmes that address the needs of employees. So the key headings really are for employers to think about hybrid and flexible working models. And we know that that's changed since the first, second year of COVID, that many staff were working at home, but a lot of businesses now are requiring staff to go in at least 2 or 3 days a week, depending on the job. Focus on employer wellbeing has massively increased. I was at a conference last year and they were all talking about the wellbeing programs beyond EAP, so beyond the traditional therapeutic support or occupational health. There's also talk about reskilling and upskilling. So it possibly depends on the business, where they're located and the access they've got to people being able to take up any jobs that become available, but reutilising really the workforce, because people come with, decades of experience and understanding things that can take a long time for someone new that joins the organisation to learn. And then the retention of older workers. So we know that some businesses purposely are, attracting older workers into the workforce as they've got more of a dynamic approach to staff working, short hours, part-time hours. And then looking at workforce diversity and inclusion. And as we've seen, an increase in the understanding about what happens when people enter midlife and the kind of things that we need to be mindful of, like the change that women go through. So to help individuals move through this transition and examine their lives, there are several key strategies that have been identified. So self-reflection, taking time to pause and reflect on one's journey, values and aspirations. And it's a good time to do it because if you've had children and they've grown up, moved out, of course, we know that you're not having to give so much time to organising your life unless you've also got new stresses or new responsibilities that have emerged. Many people in midlife are also supporting older and aged parents. Explore new interests, trying out new hobbies and learning new skills can provide a sense of meaning and purpose. And we know that with the research on the brain, that keeping the brain active, and in psychology, giving it more novel experiences can really help keep the brain working and people staying within the system and not developing any further health problems. Maintaining social connections is key. We know there's been lots of research done on happiness studies and loneliness, and that many people can go for weeks without contacting anyone or having any real support from anyone. So support from family, friends, and the community is crucial. So I'd say to anybody before they even enter midlife is start utilising what you've got access to in your local community, whether that's a meetup group and it gives you a chance to try lots of new things and meet new people, and not wait until work has either gone completely part-time or you've retired completely. It can take some confidence to get over anxiety of doing some new things. And if you're experiencing that, then you need to prioritise your mental health and seek some professional help or counselling, which is a way of really helping get that outside support to examine where you're at and what previously supported you and what else you can try. Staying physically active, as we know, regular exercise and outdoor activities are proven to be really beneficial to mental health. But we know that as we age, we don't necessarily retain the same fitness levels that we might have done in previous years. But we really need to be mindful of strength-based exercises, resistance training, so that we have good sense of balance and prevent, as we get older, of having any falls that can be really difficult to heal from. And adopting healthy habits, so people can get into midlife and they exercise less and eat more food that possibly on a daily basis isn't good for them. So we really need to think about what we're doing overall and come up with a plan. So to help you uncover what to do next, here's a list of questions that you can ask yourself. So get yourself a nice journal, make a cup of tea, and take some time and consider these, because some of these questions require quite a deep level of introspection for each question. So see which ones you can answer and what comes up to you during that process. And it's also something that you can do with any friends, start to examine these deeper aspects of your life. So the first one is, what do you truly value in life? So if you're not quite sure what you value, there are values exercises that you can do online where you have a list of words that relate to different values, and you circle those as in the level of importance and the priority that you give those. And sometimes our values are different in terms of personal and work values, but have a look at what you value in life and how you then prioritize your time around those values. What brings you joy and fulfillment? You know, what things light you up, make you happy, make you feel curious, excited, and, you know, elicit that capacity to travel, to explore more. However, for the people that are experiencing some low mood or depression, then feeling a sense of joy and fulfillment can feel a bit more out of reach. So it's important, again, to get some support, because it's not unusual to experience this question of, who am I? What's my purpose? What is the meaning of life as we enter that time period? And then explore, what are my passions? How can I incorporate those into your daily life? So I took up around 2015, my son gave me a tablet, and then I ended up buying a camera, and I took up photography, and I found that, and still do, incredibly enjoyable, and a way to sort of harness the same benefits that I get from mindfulness, but by taking my camera and exploring new places. And ask the question, am I living authentically in alignment with your values? And what have you learnt from your experiences so far? So one of the things that I teach people to do is review, maybe the last few decades of their life. It's easier to do if you're working with someone one-to-one, to get them to think about the experiences that they've had, in all sorts of ways, whether that is work, personal relationships, having children, travel, and what have you learned from those experiences, both good and bad. And of course, that's open to interpretation as to how we define those experiences. What dreams or aspirations have you set aside that you'd like to revisit? One of the common things, and especially people who ask older people who are end at life, what dreams or aspirations do they wish they would have done and revisited? And lots of people can get into their 50s and 60s and wait a long time before they go and travel to places they've always wanted to go, and put that on the back burner. So try and start, even if it's a couple of hours a week, a couple of days a week, where you start to really sit back and think about what dreams and aspirations you have. Create a list, your bucket list, for the ones that are achievable while you're at home. That's once a week. You might try a new class. You wanted to do pottery, needlework, rug making, visit galleries, go to museums, or try even more daring activities. And how can you contribute meaningfully to your community or society? Now, I'd like to give this with a caveat, because if you've been giving to people all of your life and helping out and have brought up children, sometimes you need to spend a bit of time when you're in review being a little bit selfish and deciding what you need to do for you first. And what changes would you like to make in your personal and professional life? So if you're still working, do you want to go part-time? Do you want to focus on a particular specialism? And what aspects of your personal and professional life are working really well and what need tweaking? And how can you improve your relationships with family and friends? So sometimes that's about how we think about how we keep in contact with people, how much time we spend with them, how we celebrate different events throughout the family. And if there are any difficulties with any family members, then that's where therapy can help you get some support to work through your feelings about that and decide what to do moving forward. And what skills or knowledge would you like to acquire? So I certainly know that since I started doing a lot of the work on YouTube, I started doing podcasts over 3 years ago, and it wasn't anything that I'd ever really planned when I first created my website and I was writing blogs, and then I started doing the podcasts, is the amount of skills that are required to learn in order to film a video and upload it, whether that's grappling with Zoom, how it works, buying the right camera for your laptop, how to edit videos, how to find out, what titles to use, thumbnails to use, all of it. So that was all building new skills. And I know that when me and Danielle, who first started doing the podcast, were talking about all of those skills, we'd equally get overwhelmed and decide what was the one skill we needed to try and tackle each week and slowly move through them. So I'm quite pleased to say I've got much better. Have I mastered it? No, but I've got much better at doing all of those things, and I even enjoy some of the processes of editing some of the material that I use for the social platforms and my website. And what other skills, what skills or knowledge have you got, and what else on top of what could you acquire? If you're interested in gardening, but there might be a particular time of the year that you want to learn how to, create a vegetable patch, or, excuse me for that, or any new skill really, particular flowers, you want to go into competitions. And again, this is great having a new focus. And when you engage in self-reflection and when you address those questions, what insight comes to you as just a result of asking the questions? And take a log of that, because once we start asking ourselves questions, then allow that information that comes up to permeate and see what occurs in the coming weeks or months. I'm going to post those questions underneath this video so that you can have access to them. So the other aspect of this is managing mental health during the midlife is crucial for your overall well-being and can be achieved through several strategies. So as I said, seek professional support where you need it, whether that's coaching, to help you map out what's already worked well, what you've enjoyed, what you've learned, and where you're going next. Also, practice mindfulness and stress reduction. So incorporating meditation, mindfulness, or yoga, deep breathing exercises into your daily routine can help you really reduce stress. I started practicing yoga at least 12 years ago now, and trained as a yoga and meditation teacher in 2019. And over time, I've done different styles of yoga. But for a long time, especially after 2019, I did yoga to develop more flexibility, and then it was about strength. But also in midlife and beyond, it's also thinking about balance. So there are various types of yoga out there, you know, active, passive, yin yang yoga, yoga nidra, which is a really deep relaxation that's great if you are experiencing any stress. So consider that, you know, what your body feels like, and whether or not, if you feel any tightness or stiffness and are experiencing stress, then it's certainly worth looking at a local class. And sometimes having a tutor that is of a similar age group that can really consider what the needs are of that age group can be helpful. Stay connected socially, as we said, maintaining those relationships or building on those can really make a difference. And prioritizing self-care, engaging in activities that nourish your body, mind, and spirit, such as hobbies, exercise, and those relaxation techniques. Of course, maintaining a physical health, your balanced diet, and good sleep hygiene. And good sleep hygiene means how you sort of prepare yourself before you go to bed. So, do you go to bed at a regular time? What is your quality of sleep like? Do you fall asleep straight away? Do you wake up in the early hours at like 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning? What do you do if you wake up at that time? Or are you finding it difficult to get to sleep? And be really mindful about the kind of things that are going through your mind as you are making your way to bed. Because if you reflect on the day and everything that's gone wrong and carry all those worries, that will certainly interrupt your sleep. So have a look at how you can create some sleep hygiene activities so that you can get the best rest possible. Spend time outdoors, taking regular walks, engaging in outdoor activities, we know really supports good mental health. And then being aware of your mental health triggers as we go through different ages and stages. It doesn't mean to say that we're impervious to people, things, or situations that can activate us negatively and activate our mental health. So occasionally that can happen, but if there's something that happens a lot, it is useful to get some support. Practice gratitude, what's gone well in your life and what's worked, and consider how grateful you are for the things that you've achieved and attained, whether that's a place to live, safety, security, comfort, a decent bank balance, happy, healthy kids, or just a sense of enjoying life, regardless of how simple it may appear on the surface. Simplicity can be key, and lots of people I find at the moment are going through having a look at what they've collected over the years and given away goods they no longer need, taking them to charity shops and really thinking about how they fill their space. And sometimes, especially in Feng Shui, we talk about how when you do that, you're actually moving stagnant energy, and can help with revitalizing and supporting you in reviewing life and finding some clarity about what next. So, as we said, explore new interests, and by implementing these strategies, individuals in midlife can better navigate the emotional changes and challenges associated at that life stage. However, I don't want to ignore the fact that a lot of people also go from very difficult circumstances during midlife, whether that is relationship breaks up, changes at work, or even losing jobs and being made redundant. And it can be a time where it's particularly difficult if your children have grown up and your sort of reason for living and functioning has changed or even disappeared, and that can take people into what we know in the spiritual circles of the dark night of the soul, where you can feel really depressed and anxious. So definitely get some support from somebody. There are free services. You can go to GPs, Samaritans, and Mind, which is aimed at adults, to help you, or community groups, so that you're not alone and struggling with that, because many more people struggle with that, but do so in isolation, and don't take the hand that's held out to them sometimes. So midlife, though, can be a time to transform and harness the opportunities for personal growth and transformation through those key strategies. So as we said, embrace self-reflection, get your journal out, explore your values, passions and dreams, reassess your life, its direction and priorities. Think about what your perfect day looks like. If you've stopped working, maybe you want to have a part-time job or help at a local shelter, anywhere. Just consider how you utilize your time. Having a routine can still be important, even if there's not too many things in that routine. Make sure you get out a couple of times a week. Don't spend inordinate amounts of time by yourself. Seek new experiences, step out of that comfort zone. I was having conversations with people over the last few weeks, and it's quite interesting that sometimes we don't realise, once lots of crises and drama, for whatever reason, has moved on out of our life and experience, and we can start to enjoy the peace and stillness that comes along with that. But that can get too comfortable, and we need to think sometimes how we step outside of that comfort zone. And sometimes people end up being more of a hermit, because they can start to feel some anxiety about the things that they used to do without even really thinking about it. And again, that's worth exploring if that's you and you're experiencing that in your life at the moment. Focus on your professional growth, consider career changes and advancements. I've had a few clients who have really been looking at the career and also the skills that they've gathered over the years and the ones that they enjoy deploying in their career, and how they can either create a career or a job that's more suited to where they're at now, or even go freelance and develop an entrepreneurial approach, so that they can carve out the day and a lifestyle that really works for them. Recent studies show that 60% of people who make career changes in midlife report higher job satisfaction within 2 years. So there's the evidence to suggest, don't wait, don't hang around, and don't stay static. If you're not happy and you feel a sense of dissatisfaction, get some support and even a career advisor. There's quite a few professionals that have left their corporate world and are helping people really reflect on the journey of where they are now. Assess your skills, research new career paths, and consider additional education or certification. So in terms of prioritising well-being, we know that the National Institute of Aging emphasises that physical health directly impacts emotional health and well-being during midlife, and we've seen that in our research. And the key aspects of that, just to revisit those, are exercise, nutrition, adequate sleep, and stress management techniques to your routine, as well as those hobbies and connections. It's a holistic life approach, really, to happiness and well-being. And if you want more information on that, I've got some free PDFs that I can send you that look at holistic alternative practices to support you in your life, and some top tips. So if there's any areas of issues around relationships with siblings, children, or partners, have a look at those now you've got time to address any issues, and develop a growth mindset and view challenges as opportunities for learning and developing resilience, and celebrate small victories. Reframe failures as necessary steps towards growth. People are sometimes too hard on themselves and see that some of the things that didn't work out as confirmation of failure, but really they're just experiences, and how we view them varies from person to person. But it's really about, what did you learn as a result of that, and what would you do different, and how does that information help you sort of create your own sort of personal portfolio, really, so that you can capitalize on the best bits. So practice looking at things like spiritual connections, whether that's meditation, angel healing, other spiritual modalities, getting a massage, healing circles, music therapy, drum circles, going to mind, body and spirit festivals. There's lots of those in the UK, and wellbeing events. And it's a nice way of getting a taster of things that you've not tried before and meeting some interesting people. And then learn how to set goals regardless of how small they are. The smaller the better sometimes, when we need to make incremental shifts, creating both short-term 3 to 6 months or long-term goals. So by implementing those, you harness the power, become more empowered in your midlife to catalyze on your own personal evolution, leading to a more fulfilling and purposeful life. So we've gone over the practical steps. So like I said, get a journal, reflect, assess where you're at now, look at your values, set achievable goals, prioritize your health and well-being, do some of the things that maybe you've put on the back burner because you were busy helping everybody out and the family grow up. Explore new opportunities, enhance relationships, adopt a growth mindset, and seek professional support where necessary. So in terms, I was asked last year to host a panel exploring personal power and midlife. And I really started to think about this because I was thinking about the kind of messages that I received about what it meant to hit midlife, which when I was a teenage girl, and many of you might also have seen it in the same way, that to me, anyone over 30 was in midlife when I was sort of 18 years old. But we used to see, it was about the images and the role models that were around at the time of men and women who were in their midlife, and watching programs, if you're from the UK, like Last of the Summer Wine and Butterflies and all those old programs where it represented how much of UK way of living, I'm not sure, but it certainly represented pockets of communities. And I remember looking at that thinking, oh my goodness, midlife never looked appealing. And then as I approached, I think when I got to my 40s, and it was probably when my, once your children get through school and start making their own way in the world, is when I started to think, and based on the message that my mum gave me when I was growing up, she used to say, always have many strings to your bow. And I think I took that a bit too far. But make sure that you get your own interests and hobbies, because one day the children will leave home. Although many of us are seeing that it's quite difficult for people to get the level of independence that we got, when we were 18 and 20, because of the way, cost of living crises, mortgages, and the cost of buying a house now is exponential. But so as I approached that time when my youngest son went to university, I really started thinking about what is it I want to do, what I want to do with the rest of my life. I had a career at the time, but it was very stressful. I'd had burnout a couple of times. And I started to notice what happens, especially when you work in the system like a local authority or NHS, that you can be really passionate about the work that you're doing and the projects that you create and all the collaborative working that you do with all the professionals that you work alongside day to day. But there comes a time, especially if you work for an organisation that has different funding strands over the years, where you can see a project beginning, middle, and then barely get into the best phase of that project, and that project being pulled. So I started to notice around that time as well something I thought was called system fatigue, is where your passion and energy can wane, and you can even develop a cynical perspective of the world. And we've all had colleagues like that at some point in our life, and I never wanted to become that person. So I started really thinking, and the only inkling I had at the time is I wanted to create a website and share some of the information that I'd found that had helped me on my journey of my bridging psychology and spirituality. And that was sourcing information that I thought might be useful to other people who were going through different life stages. And I think the idea is sometimes we're so busy and so stressed with everything that goes on. If you've got small children, you're building a career, that life just seems to whiz by. And many of us have been told, by older relatives that, you know, before you know it, the time has passed, and then you realize all the times that you could have been spent doing things. But managing family life is a challenge, you know, regardless of whether one or two adults in the family are working. But it's a challenge financially, emotionally, managing the relationships and the needs of everyone in the family. And over time, in particular over the last decade, it's become a much more common for people to realize it isn't always about making sure that everybody else has got what they need, but actually to be a little bit selfish sometimes and put steps in place to make sure that you get what you need. So I was always aware of pursuing the academic studies that I enjoyed. I did a lot of reading, I enjoyed traveling about, and the desire for travel was reactivated as my youngest son went to uni, and I started spending a lot of time by the south coast. And I found that moving myself out of familiar places, as in where I lived, and the community I was in, really gives you the space to be able to um, really reflect on where you're at in that point. And, you know, do I want to keep doing this job? Do I want to utilize the skills? Can I utilize the skills in a different way? So I wasn't that sure, but I did know that I didn't want to continue working 5 days a week. I found it incredibly challenging to manage personal, home life, career, and you know, a day to day when you're working full time. So by about 2016, I decided I wanted to work 3 days a week. And I managed to find a job as the organisation I was working for was going through a massive transition programme. So I was offered a different job, and that was 4 days a week, and that was great. That really made a difference. And I had to get used to the cut in money because, of course, you get less money. But in a way, over time, I started to really see the benefit of, you know, losing, you don't lose that much because you pay so much in tax. But and then by 2018, I was approached by a different organisation and asked to work for them, and that was 3 days a week, and that was great. And that was just a year before COVID hit, and the whole world changed, and everybody started working online and using Zoom. And that was great. I love working at home. It was really easy to do the job at home for like many people, as long as we put in the right meetings to make sure that we kept that connection, that contact going. But we were busy enough where we were in contact with everybody all the time. And so at the same time, I was growing my passion for photography, spending a lot of time doing that. I got back to cycling more, and then started to really think about, okay, what next? So it took a couple of goes of reviewing life and really thinking about that, and starting to put some new things in place, try new things, go to new places, travel around, and started to sift and sort what I liked, what I wanted more of, and what I didn't want more of, and continued with that program. So by late 2022, I'd then been working for a corporate company where we had designed and created a program for women who'd experienced domestic abuse, and that was helping them to rebuild their lives. And so the idea of change, grow, and transform has come out of the many different types of work that I've done, whether that's with teenagers who are thinking about their life trajectory and what life path they want to be on and how to navigate it when it doesn't quite turn out in a way that they expect, or women and men who are transitioning into relationships or out, or whether or not they've got to that point in their life, as we're talking about today, where they really need to consider what's working for them and what changes they need to make. So after that program, it's when I started to, I'd already been doing the podcasts, I enjoyed that. And lots of things have come from that I wasn't expecting. So one of the things that I talk to clients about is start dreaming, start daydreaming, and use the times of the day where you can really capitalize on the way the brain works. When we slow down at the end of the day and we're a little bit tired, use that time not to worry and think about everything that may have gone wrong or what you need to do the next day to sort things out. Is use that time to dream about all the things that you want to do. See yourself visiting those countries, see yourself doing those courses, signing up for things, receiving opportunities, people asking you to get involved in things that you've always wanted to do. Play around with your imagination in that way, but let go when it comes to the how will that happen? And if you can, from all of those different ideas that you have, start to do one small thing, even if it's one thing a week, going to a new class, signing up to an art course, pottery course, all the things that I said before. And just doing that one thing a week to start with, and slowly build in more and more each day, then that's how we start to actually get behavior change. That's how we can start to incrementally see our life change. And it isn't as daunting then. It doesn't feel like that we're dropping off the edge of a cliff when all of a sudden we realize we don't want that job anymore, or we want to retire, because we're building something alongside that that feels purposeful, has a different quality to it, and something that we enjoy more. And it also staves off, you know, depression and deeper and darker moods. Not that you won't go through those things, because all of us have to face the fact that people around us sometimes pass by, and crises can happen without realizing. But the more you practice mindfulness, meditation, and connect with the things that make you feel good, the more you build up the resilience for when things aren't so good. But if things aren't so good for more than a few days in a row, in particular for a few weeks at a time, then you need to seek some support from someone who will listen to you, but also help you put a plan together. So hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you for listening.